Born and raised, orphaned and struggling, found and seen, eccentric and remembered, William Caste brought the best of cinematic entertainment which continuously evolved in the 1950s. America's golden age was bringing out cinematic masterpieces with technologies like 3D, which were becoming more and more mainstream. But once a young 13-year-old William laid eyes upon Bela Lugosi on stage performing his iconic role as Dracula, he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and it would literally become the work he is known for, and also the title of his memoirs, I'm Gonna Scare the Pants Off of America. This is William Caste.
I am William Caste, the director of the motion picture you're about to see. At any time you are conscious of a tingling sensation, you may obtain immediate relief by screaming. Don't be embarrassed about opening your mouth and letting rip with all you've got, because the person in the seat right next to you will probably be screaming too. And remember this, a scream at the right time may save your life.
Caste was born on April 24, 1914. He was the only child of parents Sadie Snellenberg and William Schloss, and lived in New York City. Life started off well for young William, until he would feel the hard shock that changed his life when his mother passed away when he was only 9 in 1923. It only got worse when a year later his father too would pass on, leaving him an orphan at the age of 11. As he searched for work, William managed to land small roles in off-Broadway productions of stage shows, as well as becoming one of its set builders. As mentioned, when Caste was attending a live show of Dracula, starring the horror icon Bela Lugosi, Caste managed to meet the star after the show, and Lugosi saw the enthusiasm in Caste's eyes. So much so that Lugosi, when hearing about Caste's roles, recommended the young talent, allowing him to gain bigger strides in the entertainment business. Caste even had the chance to produce the stage show of Dracula at the age of 18, after he quit school at the age of 15. Caste managed to appear in several films such as The Man Who Cried Wolf, When Strangers Marry, during his time as an actor, but was uncredited. He gained much more prominence though as a producer for Columbia Pictures, in which he moved to in 1943, first as a dialogue coach. Although he was also a director, creating movies such as The Whistler, a film noir series, and Fort T, which was a western. During the 1940s, Caste took on the reins of many films ranging in different genres, but was mostly known for the association of film noirs. He had not yet captured the status that he would become known for by the end of the 1950s, but his reputation was certainly growing. After directing the Whistler series, Caste was assigned as the director of the Crime Doctor series, the main character in a slew of noir crime drama films which had amnesia and became a criminal psychologist, and the success of the franchise spawned a radio program. With the list of credits growing, Caste soon gained a reputation of being able to produce and direct films well under their budget. By 1947, Caste got the biggest gig yet when he was asked to be the associate producer for The Lady of Shanghai, which was directed and starring film and radio icon Orson Welles. Caste was only hired to do secondary location work for the film, but like his acting roles, he was again uncredited. Caste then left Columbia to work at Universal in 1949. He was immediately saddled with two more crime dramas, Undertow and Johnny Stool Pigeon. Yes, that was an actual title. Thankfully though, Caste was able to break away the following year with It's a Small World. And no, I'm not talking about the ride at Disney. A melodrama centered around a dwarf who takes up a life of crime. 2 years later, Caste would direct Serpent of the Nile, a historical film with Cleopatra and the period adventure films like The Iron Glove. But Caste at this point was unsatisfied. He wasn't making the films he wanted, but with the amount of money he accumulated over the years while working at both Columbia and Universal, Caste broke away and started to finance his own films independently. And in 1958, Caste started to work solely in the genre he became engrossed with as a child: horror. And in March of that year, after mortgaging his house, he produced the first in a line of movies he would become known for. And it wouldn't be for the reasons people thought it would be. Macabre was a horror film like every other, but Caste played a much more prominent part, not in production or in the directing chair, but this time in advertising. Caste decided to state quite loudly that his movie was so scary that this would happen.
Your attention, please. During every suspenseful moment of the running of the motion picture Macabre, the life of everyone in the theater will be insured by Lloyd's of London for $1,000 against death by fright. However, even Lloyd's of London will not grant coverage for any person with a known heart condition or for suicide by any member of the audience.
This gained a large reaction, and the tickets began to sell rapidly. And to hype up the production even more, Caste even hired people to go to the theaters where Macabre was playing to dress as nurses to be on hand in the lobby in case anybody died. And he also parked hearses and ambulances by the theater's gates. Caste knew how to make a movie with a small budget. Macabre only took an estimate of $90,000 to make, and by the end of its run, the movie grossed over $5 million US. Caste would even repeat this same strategy for his movie Homicidal in 1961, only not promising too much this time.
Here is the guarantee in writing. When you go to see my picture Homicidal, you'll get one of these certificates. Then at the climax of Homicidal, there will be a fright break. If you are too frightened to stay to see the rest of the picture, you can present this certificate at the Coward's Corner and get your full admission price refunded. Oh, and please, don't reveal the ending of Homicidal to your friends, or they will kill you. If they don't, I will.
When researching, I was happy to know that no one actually did die from this movie, but that didn't stop Caste promoting it. Even at the premiere of his movie, Caste showed up in a coffin, pretending to be dead while the movie played. He laid there for 1 hour and 10 minutes before springing back to life. The success showed that Caste, if he were to continue, he would make big strides in the industry, and the following year, with the money accumulated by Macabre, he released a movie with a little bit more star power.
I'm Vincent Price. You're invited to my party in the house on Haunted Hill, where so far the ghosts have murdered only 7 people. So won't you come and make it 8?
House on Haunted Hill is now considered a classic in the horror genre. You all probably know the story. 5 people get invited to a massive house owned by a millionaire who says if you can last the night here, you win $1 million. With Vincent Price as its main star, it was certain that Castle's luck would strike again. Castle managed to obtain Vincent for the movie when he met him for coffee. Price had been recently turned down for a role in another movie, and Castle told him the premise of House on Haunted Hill. Vincent agreed to a 2-film deal with Castle. We'll talk about the second film in a moment. Castle enjoyed the involvement of audiences with his productions that in the thrilling climax of the film, when Price's wife is ambushed by his makeshift skeleton on wires, the theaters would release a glowing red-eyed skeleton to fly over the audience. Once again, word spread quick. Soon enough, people were having fun with the movie, and they did so by trying to throw stuff at the skeleton. In that same year, with the 2-film deal Castle signed Price to, Castle would release a movie with more gimmicks than ever, with his fans today stating that this was his magnum opus, The Tingler.
I feel obligated to warn you that some of the sensations, some of the physical reactions, which the actors on the screen will feel, will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience.
In a strange blend of science fiction and horror, Vincent Price plays a scientist that discovers a parasite inside the human body, which he calls the Tingler. In the movie, the parasite feeds on fear, and they relate that to the sensation in your spine when you are terrified. Castle played on this by installing buzzers which were used in surplus World War II airplanes to deliver a shock to the audience during a certain scene in the movie, when the screen turns black, and Vincent Price could be heard during when the buzzers are turned on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic, but scream! Scream for your lives! The Tingler is loose in this theater, and if you don't scream, it may kill you. Scream! Scream! Keep screaming! Scream for your lives! It's here! It's over here! Help! 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 Look out, it's under the seat! Ladies and gentlemen, the Tingler has been paralyzed by your screaming. There is no more danger. We will now resume the showing of the movie.
The projection booth, quick!
Castle would even double down on his methods for the Tingler. When the film was near the end of its run, and people knew about the buzzers in the chairs, Castle directed the theatre staff to be planted in the audience, so when this scene happened, they would pretend to faint, and the familiar nurses in the lobby would come in to cart them out. Castle even overdubbed Vincent's lines during the scene with the parasite when the movie was being shown in drive-in theatres. The gimmicks were now plastered to Castle's name, and when a new movie dropped, no matter what age you were, you knew you were getting a treat. During this wave of success, Castle opted to imitate a certain director during the introduction of his films. The same certain movie director took note of the box office success linked to Castle's B-movies. It would eventually lead the director to make one of the classic horrors that would kick off the direction of all horror movies going forward. That person? Alfred Hitchcock. The movie? Psycho.
William Caste, the producer of this motion picture, has a question for you.
Do you believe in ghosts?
As the swinging 60s kicked off, Castle's run with horror wouldn't be slowing down. Here's our quick rundown. In 1960, Castle released 13 Ghosts, which played off the novelty of 3D glasses at the time. He called his glasses for the film Ghost Viewers, which he kindly explained.
And here's how it works. Would you please change the color of the screen? Thank you. You must only use it when the screen changes to this kind of a bluish color. Then you raise the viewer to your eyes and you look at the screen through it. If you believe in ghosts, you look through the red part of the viewer. If you do not believe in ghosts, you look through the blue part.
A year later, Castle directed Mr. Sardonicus, a film about a man who's given a permanent disgusting smile after he attempts to rob his father's grave for a winning lottery ticket. The gimmick for this film was one that I personally wish was a thing now with movies. Interactivity.
Punishment is too good for Mr. Sardonicus. If you feel that way too, if you want to show him no mercy and punish him as he deserves, then hold up your punishment pole ballot with the thumb pointing down, like this. If, on the other hand, you're one of those I wouldn't hurt a fly kind of people, one of those sweet, nice, kind souls who would let Mr. Sardonicus go free, you should hold your ballot with the thumb pointing up, like this.
Every person who attended the screening of the movie would be given these, and the outcome was chosen by Castle on screen. The outcome, although, was always the thumbs down ending.
No mercy. 17, you carry the 3. Subtract 40. No mercy. So be it. You have given the verdict.
Castle stated in his autobiography, "Invariably, the audience's verdict was thumbs down. Contrary to some opinions, just in case the audience voted for mercy, we had the other ending, but it was rarely, if ever, used." With the films being later distributed on DVD and download, the merciful ending has still not been resurfaced. Castle has stated that he had shot a merciful ending, but it has been lost ever since. Usually most films, when released on home video, now give you an alternative ending to view in the extras. But the ability to choose your ending right there in the theater was a smart idea. However, it really wasn't executed. This idea was actually parodied in the episode Raging Bender in Futurama.
I have no choice but to... If you want Calculon to race to the laser gun battle in his hover Ferrari, press 1. If you want Calculon to double-check his paperwork, press 2. Enter now. You have pressed 2.
No, I didn't.
I'm almost positive you did.
In 1964, Castle made Straight Jacket, a movie about a woman who, after murdering her husband with an axe, is released after 20 years in solitary confinement. And once she's released back into a rural town, murders begin again, and she claims her innocence. While the film was being promoted by its lead star, Joan Crawford, Castle's advisors made it clear that there were to be no more gimmicks, due to the star's pay and touring schedule to promote it. But that wouldn't stop Castle, as people were treated to cardboard axes when buying a ticket. Castle always experimented, and even though he stayed in the horror genre, his films gave people a fun occasion to look forward to, even though no real scares were seen. Sadly though, his time at the top wouldn't be for long, as one last major project came at his door. Castle purchased the rights to Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby, a psychological horror story about a woman fearing for her baby's life as she is pursued by a group looking to use her child for satanic purposes. Paramount Pictures were gearing up to have the film released in 1968, and Castle was excited to obtain the strong story.
When I bought Rosemary's Baby, I saw in it an important motion picture. I saw in it an event, I saw in it a breakthrough of the old-fashioned Hollywood, where we had Doris Day as the perpetual virgin and Rock Hudson as the hero. And we were living in a Cinderella world. And I saw for the first time that the possibility in this novel was so deep that possibly the audience was ready for it, because there was an unrest in Hollywood because people were not believing. They were tired of the Cinderella aspect, of things that weren't. And so I said, this is a chance.
Although Paramount had other ideas. Paramount didn't want Castle's name in line with the project. They believed with the serious subject matter in the novel, it should be directed by someone who wasn't associated with cheap B-movies, effectively handing the director's chair to Roman Polanski. Castle only had a hand in the film's production, and is also briefly seen in the movie. Castle really hoped that this could have thrust his name back up to the top. Shortly after the film's release, and with his house mortgaged again to finance the film, Castle suffered kidney failure and took time off to recover. By the time he returned, there was no one actively seeking his projects. Castle would stick to producing after his kidney failure, with the exception of his last ever film to direct, called Shanks, a movie about a puppeteer who can manipulate dead bodies.
He speaks no evil, because he's too busy making dead people walk. If you're nervous, and you feel jumpy, Malcolm will show you how to relax.
There were no gimmicks with this one. Castle's health was not the finest. His trademark cigar in the chair pose wasn't for show. He was a heavy smoker, much like everyone at the time. And sadly, Castle died from a heart attack caused by his constant smoking at the age of 63 in 1977. Castle gave people the entertainment they needed. He made experiences in going to the movies. While his movies were not seen as the scary type he hoped for, he gave lots of joy to the people who flocked in droves to see it, brought on by his ability to go head first on an idea. His memory lives on though. In 1993, the movie Matey was a period comedy set in the late 50s, with movies parodying the gimmicks Castle would bestow on his audience, with the threat of a Cuban Missile Crisis lurking in the background. Its main character, Lawrence Woosley, was played by John Goodman, and was an imitation of Castle and his eccentric personality. His movies have also been kept alive by his daughter, Terry, who produced the remake of House on Haunted Hill in 1999, which featured Geoffrey Rush as the eccentric millionaire, with his last name now being not Lauren, but Price. 13 Ghosts was also remade the year later, and this was done thanks in large part to Robert Zemeckis, the director of the Back to the Future films and Forrest Gump. He was one of Castle's biggest fans. They launched the production company Dark Castle. And if you've heard the name before, here's just a few of the movies they've had a hand in making that they're known for. Even though the company, like Castle, stayed in horror by bringing you the House of Wax remake in 2005 and the movie Orphan, they even dabbled in action and science fiction with Ninja Assassin, Splice, Bullet to the Head, and most recently, Suburbicon. Castle gave more fun than scares, and now his name still continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. It's like he said, we all have a common interest, bigger and more horrible monsters, and I'm just the monster to bring them to you.
Happy haunting. Goodbye for now. Shall we go? ask you a question. Were you holding his hands throughout the picture?
I was holding him back. He was running out.
Tell me, did you enjoy the? Did you guess the surprise ending?
I had some ideas about it, but I wasn't sure.
Tell me, will you tell your friends the ending of this picture?
Oh no, never.
No, I'll let them suffer through it. Mr. Caste, I'd like to congratulate you on a fine piece of production. I think Alfred Hitchcock is going to have to go a long way to try and top something like this.
Well, thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. Would you tell your friends the ending of the picture?
No, sir. I would ruin it.
That is a promise.
Yes, yes. Oh, I'd never go home and tell any about this, especially my mother. I want her to come down and see something like this. She'd enjoy it.
Do you think it's fair to tell the ending of a picture like this to your friends?
No.
Why not?
Well, well, for one thing, if they're going to see it, it spoils it. And for another thing, let them pay their 70 cents and see it and find out for themselves.
Thank you very much.